This story is a mystery, a wonderful mystery in a way, one that it appears no one can solve. What we're about to see is a rare condition called the Savant Syndrome. People with that condition have been called more brutally idiot savants. It's a spectacular skill or talent that occurs in an autistic or retarded child, an island of brilliance, even genius, in the brain of someone who is otherwise extremely limited intellectually. Last fall, you met three of these savants, these geniuses: a pianist, a wizard, and a sculptor. Tonight, we meet again. Alonzo Clemens, sculptor. Using wax or clay, Alonzo can do more than imitate nature. His sculpture has all the grace and movement and imagination of a truly great craftsman. Alonzo Clemens is plain and simple an artist. He is also retarded. He cannot count much beyond 10. His speech is severely impaired. His parents said he had the talent even as a baby. He now lives in this residence for the developmentally disabled in Boulder, Colorado, where he's been able to hold a part-time job cleaning out stables. That's what he does with his mornings. Afternoons he spends sculpting. He can complete one of these horses in less than 20 minutes. Did anybody ever show you how to do this?
Nobody. I do it myself.
Nobody ever showed you how? No, and never?
Never.
Dr. Darrell Treffert is a psychiatrist. We asked him to review the film of Alonzo and the two other savants we met to help give us some inkling into the phenomenon. Let's look at a little bit of Alonzo. Perhaps you might comment as we go. How do you know how to sculpt an animal? How do you know how to do that?
Remember.
That's a very characteristic response when you ask any of the savants, how do they do it? They say they remember, or it's their mind. They don't know how it just happens that way, and they can't understand why you can't do that or why I can't. It just comes naturally to them.
How do you remember? Do you know?
In the head.
You see a picture of it in your head?
Yeah.
My feeling is that, yes, he does indeed see a picture in his head, and that it's there, and it's much more detailed and much more, has a retentive, or a retention much more than the rest of us do. We would have to keep going back to reinforce that in our mind, especially with respect to detail.
Did you see a picture of that horse in your head when you made that horse?
Yeah. God in heaven, God gave talent.
God gave you the talent?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. How do you make this very tiny details like the hoof and the eyes? How do you do that?
The fingernail.
Your fingernail. Pam Driscoll runs the Driscoll Gallery in Denver. She handles Alonzo's work.
Anatomically, it's just fabulous. Considering he's never had an art class in his life. He does it all from memory. It's just wonderful.
Alonzo has had his first show at the Driscoll. The bronze castings of his wax sculpture start at $750, and he's quit his job at the stables. You did these two in about half an hour.
Huh?
Do you think you're a special kind of person?
Yeah.
How special? What's special about Alonzo?
Smart.
Smart. You're very smart.
It,
Thank you for showing us. Suppose you want to know what day October 1st would fall on in the year 3000, or what date the third Wednesday of June in the year 10,003 would be. Well, it's easy if you have a computer and the computer's been programmed properly. If you don't, there's always George Finn. He can give you the day if you give him the date, or the date if you give him the day, going back to the year 1 and up to, it would seem, infinity. George has the most common of the savant's gifts. He's a calendar calculator. He's 43 now, a patient at the Bronx Psychiatric Center's Rehabilitation Center. What day of the week was August 13th, 1911?
Sunday.
What day of the week was May 20th, 1921?
Friday.
What day of the week is February 3rd in the year 2068?
That will fall on a Friday.
What date was the third Saturday in October in 1945?
It was on the 20th.
What day of the week was May 30th in the year 1?
May 30th, the year 1 was on a Wednesday.
This is remarkable, George. You got every one of these right.
Right.
What makes his talent so extraordinary is that with his limited intellectual capabilities, he cannot multiply even the simplest numbers. I'd like to try some math questions, if you don't mind.
No.
Some arithmetic. Can you do 3 times 2?
3 times 2 is it 7, is it?
Or how about 5 times 7?
5 times 7 might be 50.
Besides calculating days and dates, George also remembers the weather for each day of his adult life. We checked him against the Weather Service, and of course he was right. November 3rd, 1958. What kind of day was it?
It was on a cloudy day. It was on a Monday. It was cloudy that day. That's right.
It was?
And it was snow flurries that morning. Very cold. Little bit of raindrops, too.
Windy?
Yes, windy.
How about May 22nd, 1940?
That fell on a Wednesday.
What was the weather like?
I can't tell. It was only a baby, infant baby.
Do you know how you do it?
I don't know, but that's fantastic. I can do that.
But how do you do it?
I don't know.
What happens inside your head?
I got a good mind. That's why I do it.
But do you have a formula that you work out? Do you know what I mean by a formula?
Yes. What's it mean?
Do you have do you multiply certain numbers by certain numbers?
Yes, any dates. Yes, I know how to do it.
Up until recently, people assumed about George and others that it was simple memory, that he memorized the perpetual calendar and just kept going out. You can demonstrate now by giving him questions that he couldn't possibly have seen, that he must have some equation or formula in his head of some sort. He can't memorize that. So that, but it still boils down to the basic ability to concentrate or to remember, because he hasn't put his mind to finding out what 2 times 2 is.
What day is June 6th in the year 91,360?
91,360. June the 6th. It'll be on a Friday.
Well, you're remarkable. It's been a great pleasure to meet you.
I'm glad. What's your name again?
Morley.
Morley, and I'm glad to meet you. I will remember this day as long as I live.
For the rest of us whose brains are incapable of recalling last week's weather or even today's date, George Finn is a memorable man. And so is this next savant. He is Leslie Lemke of Milwaukee. He was born with a triple handicap: retarded, blind, cerebral palsy. Leslie, now 31, didn't walk much before he was 10 and only started talking a few years ago. And yet... His foster parents, May and Joe Lemke, have cared for him since he was 6 months old. May, you bought a piano for Leslie when he was blind, retarded, cerebral palsy. Why did you do that?
Well, I thought maybe I could stir something in the poor blind boy that was laid there. Couldn't walk, talk, do anything. And so I put this piano in his bedroom, and I would go like that up and down, hoping to raise some reaction in the boy.
And what happened?
A little while after that, nearly a week, he still laid, couldn't walk, talk, or do anything. And then when Joe and me had gone to bed, it was on a Wednesday evening the following week. Shh, wait a minute, love. And I said to Joe, "Hey, Joe, did you leave that television on?" He said, "No, why?" I said, "Listen, where's that beautiful music coming from?" And he said, so I got up, went to the boy's room, and I had got that little piano in his room, and the boy that didn't walk, talk, or move or anything, I'd suddenly slid over like this onto that chair, played all the way through.
Could he, as May says he did, just get up in the middle of the night one night and play Tchaikovsky's Piano Concerto #1?
Yes, that's another startling thing about it, I think, that startles people, is that it does have a way of suddenly occurring.
When you heard music for the first time,
Yes, I heard music first
how come you were able to play it so well?
because I was able to play it so well because I'm musicians.
Because
I'm a musician.
you're a musician. Dr. Treffert knows Leslie quite well beyond our film. He's been observing him for 3 years, and Leslie remains as much a mystery to him now as when they first met. How does he technically know? How does his fingers know that if he strikes key X, he will produce note A?
I don't know the answer to that question. That's one of the mysteries of this thing. I don't know. The very interesting and intriguing things about the Savant Syndrome, and probably the most intriguing thing of all, is that we don't understand it. And we ought to understand it. A bigger question than that, I think, is will we ever understand it? Because there may be an inherent inability of the brain to understand itself.
Is there any kind of relationship among the 3 savants we're looking at in this broadcast, Alonzo, George, and Leslie?
And I think that the characteristic and the uniform trait that all the savants seem to have is a remarkable memory. Alonzo can look at an animal and in his own head, not without looking back again, can recreate that. George, obviously, with his calendar calculating, has a phenomenal memory as well. And Leslie, you can play him a song once, and he will play it back.
We played a recording that we were certain Leslie had not heard before to see if he had a musical memory, an ear for it. We chose Debussy's Soirée dans Grenade. Can you play that?
Yeah.
I'm certain that he, from what my dealings with Leslie, he had never heard that before, and he simply, if you had played another 30 minutes of it, if it were that long, he would have played you another 30 minutes of it. It just doesn't end.
How does he know how to play something so meticulously that he's never even heard before?
Well, I
But this
think
one.
that a part of the brain is the musical part of the brain that's left by itself because the brain was damaged. But I think that that part was left perfectly healthy and beautiful, just so that Leslie would have a talent of some kind, and he got it.
Now Leslie gives concerts about once a week, usually for small church groups and usually for free. But this night, a crowd of 1,100 in Cincinnati are paying $10 each to see and hear Leslie Lemke in concert. 100 unanswered questions about Leslie and George and Alonzo. The Savant Syndrome is so rare, the research into it is equally rare. It may be that the cause of the syndrome is quite different in each case. As we said, no one really knows. It is a glorious mystery.
You give me hope, to Perry home. You light up my life.
Today, all three savants are doing well. Alonzo's bronze sculptures now sell for up to $1,850 each. Over $100,000 worth have been sold in the last year. Leslie is still giving concerts, mostly in churches and mostly for free. And George is holding down a job, his memory as precise as it was that sunny but cool day, April 5th, 1983, at 11 in the morning when we first met.